It's time for the Word of the Week, and this week's word is found on the Sea of Galilee, and it is in Matthew chapter 14, verse 24. After feeding a massive crowd of people, we're told that the crowd was made up of 5,000 men plus women and children. After feeding this massive crowd, Jesus takes his disciples, puts them in a fishing boat, and tells them to sail to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, while he stays and dismisses the crowds. He's going to catch up with them. So they do what they're told, and they set out across the lake. Jesus dismisses the crowd. And then we get this in verse 24, and this is from the ESV. But the boat by this time was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. The key part for us is beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. The word of the week is the word translated beaten here in the ESV, and that word is a passive participle. Let's take a look, and it is basanidzomenon. Basanidzomenon, and it means to be harassed, tormented, or tortured. It comes from a verb, basanidzein, to torture or to torment. This is a very old word, and it's a pretty cool word. It comes from a noun, basanos, and the basanos in the ancient world was a coin tester or a coin prover. You brought money to this person, or this is a person who worked for a king, and he subjected gold and silver coins to a test. There was a thing called the testing stone, and an expert would grind that coin against the testing stone and look at what was left behind. By doing so, there's still a modern test that employs a stone and acid to determine the purity of gold and silver. It's been going on for thousands of years, this form of testing. He would grind the metal against the stone and determine or prove whether or not the gold and silver was real and to what degree of purity it was. So in other words, he was literally proving what it was made of. That's the root of the word that we have translated here as the waves. The boat was being beaten by the waves. It was being proved like a coin to see what it was made of. Later on, it became a mathematical term or an accounting term, sort of like the way we foot a column in a spreadsheet to check the calculations and make sure that the math all adds up. It was a way of verifying accuracy, of seeing the trustworthiness of the accounts. So then later on, much later on, it becomes torment or torture. It was used as a punitive term regarding slaves, and it pertained to investigations when dealing with prisoners, trying to source out information to determine the guilt or innocence of a person. So it becomes proving what men are made of and getting to the reality of a situation, like it was originally proving what a coin was made of. So it is pain, suffering, and torment that reveals the true nature of the one being tormented. So in this case, who's being tormented? In the verse, grammatically, it is the boat being tormented, but the boat doesn't have feelings, right? That's why it says it's being battered by the waves. The real issue here is the people in the boat, the disciples of Jesus who have been put in the boat and told to meet him on the other side, go across. If we're going to find out what something's made of, we may see what the boat is made of, but what's probably more important? We need to see what the men in the boat are made of. So that's what's being tormented. The men in the boat going across the sea, being battered by these waves. And then we get a bonus word today, looking at the nature of these waves based on the last clause in the verse. Let's take a look at it in Koine. Ein gar enantios ho animos. So ein gar, For it was, what was? Ho anamos, the subject of the clause. For the wind was, and then we get this great little word, enantios. Enantios. It's a compound, en, in, antios, anti, against. It was in opposition to them. The wind was in opposition to them. If we were to take that in the simplest terms, it just means they were sailing into the wind, into a headwind. But when we put it together with the previous clause, the boat was being battered by the waves, was being tormented, tortured, tested by the waves. We see a fuller picture. This headwind, the nature of this headwind is such that it's driving such waves against them that it's a torment and a testing of the boat containing these men. Think about these men. If it's the 12 disciples that we're familiar with in the Gospels, a minimum of 4 of them are professional fishermen whose livelihood comes from fishing on this body of water. And what we're told is this enantios wind, this wind in opposition to them, is so fierce and so great that their boat is being battered, using a word that has to do with torture and torment and proving what things are made of, by the waves. These waves are hammering the boat. This is a rich picture. And what we're going to find out is not just what the boat is made of, but far more importantly, what are the disciples made of? To see how the rest of the test goes, you have to go back to Matthew 14 and read the rest of the story. But before we close, let's talk a little bit more about our word of the week, basanidzein, to torture, to torment. It's used elsewhere in the passive, like it is here in the passive, to refer to people who are possessed by demons. Being possessed by a demon, it's said, is to be tortured or tormented like a slave. So demon possession is a horrible experience using this same word. It's used actively in the book of Revelation, specifically in chapter 9, verse 5, if you want an example, and in a few other places, I think in chapter 18, to actively describe people being tortured and tormented as a punishment. So, our word of the week this week is basanidzein, to torture or to torment, to prove what something is made of, going all the way back to the ancient coin tester or coin prover, and our bonus word, enantios, in opposition. The wind was against them, causing such massive crashing waves as to batter their boat. And hopefully it will reveal to us and reveal to them and reveals to Jesus what they're made of. Great stuff. Hope that was good for you. And if so, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, Karas Kai Reina Humi, grace and peace to you.